Hi everyone.
The peach orchard.
The peach orchard.
When I was very young, I lived near a peach orchard.
When I was very young, I lived near a peach orchard.
Now there is a park where the orchard used to be.
Now there is a park where the orchard used to be.
I always remember the peach orchard because my grandmother and I used to go there and pick peaches.
I always remember the peach orchard because my grandmother and I used to go there and pick peaches.
The owner of the orchard would let all the neighbors pick peaches.
The owner of the orchard could let all the neighbors pick peaches.
It's not the fact that I used to get many ripe, tasty peaches that I remember.
It's not the fact that I used to get many ripe, tasty peaches that I remember.
It's the time that I used to spend with my grandmother that I remember.
It's the time that I used to spend with my grandmother that I remember.
My grandmother was very old, but she was very healthy.
My grandmother was very old, but she was very healthy.
She used to walk a lot.
She used to walk a lot.
I think that is what kept her fit.
I think that is what kept her fit. Is what kept her fit.
She had a lot of energy, so she liked to go to a lot of places.
She had a lot of energy, so she liked to go to a lot of places.
She would get a fruit basket, and then she would ask me if I wanted to go to the orchard.
She would get a fruit basket, and then she would ask me if I wanted to go to orchard. She would get a fruit. She would get a fruit basket, and then she would ask me if I want to go to the orchard.
I always said yes because I enjoyed walking through the orchard on a sunny day.
I always said yes because I enjoyed walking through the orchard on a sunny day.
We never climbed up on a ladder to reach the peaches.
We never climbed up on a ladder to reach the peaches.
We just reached for the low-hanging fruit.
We just reached for the low-hanging fruit.
My grandmother and I used to talk all the time that we were out there.
My grandmother and I used to talk all the time that we were out there.
It was nice to spend time with her.
It was nice to spend time with her.
She told me many stories about when she was a young girl.
She told me many stories about when she was younger.
We laughed and got to know each other better.
We laughed and got to know each other better.
My grandmother only visited us during the summer.
My grandmother only visited us during the summer.
She lived in California and I lived in Niagara Falls.
She lived in California and I lived in Niagara Falls.
So we didn't get to spend a lot of time with each other. We enjoyed the hot summer days in the orchard.
We enjoyed the hot summer days in the orchard.
You could smell the peaches, and the bees buzzed lazily by it.
You could smell the peaches and the bees fluttered lazily by us.
My grandmother would point out different insects and birds to me.
My grandmother would point out different insects and birds to me.
I learned a lot about nature from her.
I learned a lot about nature from her.
We would end up with a big basket of peaches.
We would end up with a big basket of peaches.
When we got home,
Basket.
my mother would wash the peaches.
When we got home, my mother would wash the peaches,
And often she would bake a peach pie for us.
and often she would bake and peach pie for us.
Nobody bakes a peach pie like my mother.
Nobody bakes the peach pie like mother.
It's good to have memories like that.
It's good to have memories like that. Like that. It's good to have memories like that. Like that.
Childhood memories of time spent with my grandmother are very precious to me.
Childhood memories of time spent with my grandmother are very precious to me.
Sometimes it's just the simple things that you do in life that leave you with the nicest memories.
Sometimes it's just the simple things that you do in life that leave you with the nicest memories.
Learning to dance.
Learning to dance.
I went to England with my mother.
I went to England with my mother.
She used to be a singer in a band.
She used to be a singer in a band.
We went to the hotel that she used to sing at.
We went to the hotel that she used to sing at.
It was a big, fancy hotel.
It was a big, fancy hotel.
Some of the people that she knew when she sang in the band were still there.
Some of the people that she knew when she sang in the band were still there.
They remembered my mother, and they had a good time talking to her and remembering old times.
They remembered my mother and they had a good time talking to her and remembering old times.
Many people told me that I looked like my mother.
Many people told me that I look like my mother.
In the hotel, they had a fancy hall where they had ballroom dancing.
In the hotel, they had a fancy hall where they had ballroom dancing. In the hotel, they had a fancy hall where they had ballroom dancing.
I am not used to that kind of dancing.
I am not used to that kind of dancing.
I always dance to rock music.
I always dance to rock music.
A man told me that he would teach me how to dance.
A man told me that he would teach me how to dance.
It looked very easy. I held one of his hands and put my other hand on his shoulder.
I held one of his hands and put my other hand on his shoulder. I held one of his hands and put my other hand on his shoulder.
He told me exactly how to move my feet.
He told me exactly how to move my feet.
I was very clumsy and I stepped on his toes.
I was very clumsy and I stepped on his toes.
He was patient with me and he counted 1, 2, 3.
He was patient with me and he counted 1, 2, 3.
I tried to waltz with him.
I tried to waltz with him.
I would start out pretty well, but then I would get mixed up and stand on his toes again.
I would start out pretty well. I would start out pretty well, but then I would get mixed up and stand on his toes again.
The man laughed about it.
The man laughed about it. The man laughed about it. The man laughed about it. The man laughed about it.
I told him that I wasn't a very good dancer, but he said that I was good for a beginner.
I told him that I wasn't a very good dancer, but he said that I was good for a beginner. I told him that I wasn't. I told him that I wasn't a very good dancer, but he said that I was good for a beginner.
I think he was just being polite.
I think he was just being polite.
The man asked my mother to dance.
The man asked my mother to dance.
My mother is a very good dancer.
My mother is a very good dancer.
I didn't know that about her.
I didn't know that about her.
She never stepped on the man's toes once.
She never stepped on the man's toes once.
The man thanked us for dancing with him, and I thanked him for giving me dancing lessons.
The man thanked us for dancing with him, and I thanked him for giving me dancing lessons.
I don't think I'll ever be very good at that type of dancing.
I don't think I'll never be very good at that type of dancing.
Each generation has a specific type of dancing.
Each generation has a specific type of dancing.
The way that I dance is different from the way that my mother dances.
The way that I dance is different from the way that my mother dances.
The way that I dance doesn't involve moving your feet too much.
The way that I dance doesn't involve moving your feet too much.
I'm not too good at fancy steps.
I'm not too good at fancy steps. I'm not too good at fancy steps.
Superheroes. When my brother was very young, he loved superheroes.
When my brother was very young, he loved superheroes.
He collected plastic figures of all the superheroes.
He collected plastic figures on the superheroes.
I think he had every superhero figurine that there was.
I think he had every superhero figurines that there was. figurine that there were. I think he had every superhero figurine that there were.
He used to tie a towel over his shoulders and run through the backyard.
He used to tie a towel over his shoulders and run through the backyard.
He pretended that he was rescuing people.
Backyard.
Of all the superheroes. I think he had every superhero figurine that there was.
I think he had the very superhero figurines that there was.
He used to tie a towel over his shoulders and run through the backyard.
He used to tie a towel over his shoulders and run through the backyard.
He pretended that he was rescuing people.
Backyard. He pretended that he was rescuing people. He pretended that he was rescuing people.
One time he stood on the roof.
One time he stood on the roof.
He really thought that he could fly with his superhero cape.
He really thought that he could fly with his superhero cap on.
He would have hurt himself if he had jumped.
He would have hurt himself if he had jumped.
My dad saw him and told him to get down.
My dad saw him and told him to get down.
My dad explained to my brother that superheroes are not real.
My dad explained to my brother that superheroes are not real. Real
people cannot fly from rooftops.
Real people cannot fly from rooftops.
My brother was disappointed.
My brother was disappointed.
He thought that the superheroes really existed.
He thought that the superheroes really existed.
My dad explained that most superheroes were created as comic book characters.
My dad explained that most superheroes were created as comic book characters.
Somebody used their imagination to make them up, and then an artist drew them.
Somebody used their imagination to make them up, and then an artist drew them.
My brother was not impressed.
My brother was not impressed.
He said that he wanted to meet the superheroes.
He said that he wanted to meet the superheroes.
My father told him that he might meet someone dressed up as a superhero.
My father told him that he might meet someone dressed up as a superhero.
But it wouldn't really be a superhero in the costume.
But it wouldn't really be a superhero in the costume.
It is hard to explain to small children.
It's hard to explain to small children
that the things that they see in comic books and on television aren't really real.
That the things that they see in comic books and on television aren't really real. That the things that they see in comic books and on television aren't really real.
Oh.
Real. Real.
My brother still pretends that he is a superhero.
My brother still pretends that he is a superhero. Hero.
He doesn't jump from rooftops, but he runs around and makes noises like he is flying.
He doesn't jump from rooftops, but he runs around and makes noise like he's flying. Like he's flying.
I look at him and remember when I used to do things like that.
I look at him and remember when I used to things like that.
I'm more mature than my brother.
I'm more mature than my brother. I'm more mature than my brother.
I know that superheroes aren't real, but I know that he is having fun and using his imagination.
I know that superheroes aren't real, but I know that he is having fun and using his imagination, using his imagination and using his imagination. I know that superheroes aren't real, but I know that he is having fun and using his imagination.